Last week, we reported on the ambush against a convoy of cars filled with Indian politicians in the state of Chhattisgarh. The attackers were Naxalites, a Maoist organization that's been active in several states in India's east for decades. The attack, which killed 27 people, was the worst Naxal incident in recent memory and shocked the country. The Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, said Naxals were the country's #1 internal threat. And earlier this week, the leaders of 9 states met in New Delhi to figure out a way to combat the insurgents. They seem to agree they'd intensify the fight against the Naxals with more police and paramilitary troops. Joining us on Skype now is our Indian contributor, Ajoy Bose. When he was a college student, Bose briefly became a Naxalite, and he's writing a memoir called My Naxalite Days. It will be published by Penguin. First of all, why did you join the Naxalites?
These were the late 60s and early 70s, where the entire world was reverberating with, cries of revolution, quick, radical change. And so I got swept along with it. And therefore, it was something which was, a real game changer in my mind. Of course, when I actually went into, the revolutionary sort of activity and dropped out of college, I realized that this certainly wasn't the path, and this was a very crude militarist ideology.
Now, the Naxals say they are defending the rights of the poor, particularly the so-called tribals, people who live by hunting and gathering in the forests of eastern India. How much appeal does Maoism have in those areas?
The Naxalites are a political group, and they are actually taking advantage of the absolutely desperate conditions the tribals live in India. They are really the original inhabitants of India. They lived here many thousands of years ago, when nobody had arrived to India, and they had actually fairly prosperous kingdoms. They were enslaved by invaders, and for thousands of years they've been exploited terribly. They sort of retreated to forests, and that's where they live. But even these forests are going today because you have huge mining corporations motivated by mega profits who are now felling these forests, taking away their habitat. And something like the Naxalites, the Naxalites definitely have exploited these conditions.
How much of a problem are they in India? Are Naxalites a real threat to the country or an irritant in some eastern states?
I think that they have slowly but surely been capturing large tracts of rural countryside, particularly the forested areas. And therefore, they actually control many areas where there is no government except what the Naxalites, it's really Naxalite rule. So I think that in the long term, the Naxalites could actually pose a very serious threat. And they have they shown recently that they have enough sophisticated weaponry to take out large military convoys. And this time, in the last ambush, they actually destroyed an entire state leadership of a major political party like the Congress.
One Indian national security expert says there are no flaws in government policy because there is no government policy to deal with the Maoists. What's your assessment of how successive Indian governments have dealt with this decades-long insurgency?
Yes, I think that there's a tendency, not just with the government, but with, I think, the, with opinion makers and policy makers as a whole, to either romanticize the Naxalites or demonize them. There is no systematic approach even to the Naxalites. There is no systematic approach to the tribal problem. And I think that both on the security front and on the development front, there has been no strategy. What is worse, there is no political will. And actually at the grassroots level, many political parties and certainly individual politicians take help from the Naxalites to win elections.
Ajoy, the ambush late last month, though, seems to have gotten everyone in the political elite excited and promising tough action. How serious are they?
There have been the usual noises. But unfortunately, I think the present attack underlines how disunited the political class is, because the attack immediately sparked off a mudslinging match between the two main political parties of India, the BJP and the Congress. It was the Congress leadership which was attacked and almost decimated in Chhattisgarh, where the BJP is in power. And the Congress openly accused the BJP of conniving with the Naxalites. So I don't see, and I don't have much hope in the political class closing ranks and tackling this problem with any sense of urgency.
All right, as always, thank you, Ajoy, for your perspective. Ajoy Bose is a political reporter and LinkAsia's contributor in New Delhi. You can read more about him on our experts page. And by the way, Ajoy, when is the book coming out?
Hopefully next year.
Okay, thanks. We are looking forward to it.
Now on U.S. airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories. World news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.